Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast powered by Cineman. I'm Ewan Gruff, and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan.
I'd like to dedicate this award to my Orthodox Rabbi, James Cameron. Yes, we're going to talk about the Game Awards and just a little bit of news from the movie world.
Sweet, and I caught up with a whole bunch of new releases over on Netflix, including Troll, Scrooge, and the steamy adaptation of Lady Chatterley's Lover. And I also caught Will Smith in the Apple TV Plus original Emancipation, and Lachlan caught up with See How They Run and gave Elvis another try.
Today, the main topic is a special one in our hearts. To prepare for the greatest cinematic release of this decade, Ewan and I went back to 2009. Today we are covering James Cameron's most successful movie ever, Avatar.
We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there.
Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
So welcome back, Lachlan. Thank you for your really unique introduction there. It feels like you
Thanks.
didn't even need to steal my spotlight to make that statement.
No.
We'll get into that in a second.
Some
I
people
guess.
aren't going to get that either, that
Yes,
joke, I've realized.
that's even
because
funnier then.
I said it to my mate the other day, and he goes, what? And I went, this is awkward, because not everyone's in the same circle as us, Ewan. You know, not everyone thinks,
Yeah,
just
true.
how am I going to describe this on my podcast that I do with my best friend who lives in another country? You know?
Yeah. Anyways, you can find all of the stuff we'll be talking about linked below in the time codes. If you want to skip around to anything specifically, I guess, that mentioned from the start, if you didn't get it, maybe you'll find a time code that relates to that. Hint, it's from the Game Awards, which is actually the first thing we're going to talk about today, because we are moving over to the quick news section. And first up in quick news is exactly those Game Awards. We'll, I guess, talk about the incident that happened at the end here. But most notably, I think a game that you really enjoyed so far, I don't know if you finished it yet, God of War Ragnarok, got a whole bunch of awards. Didn't take home the main trophy, though, for Game of the Year. That went to the From Software game Elden Ring. They also unveiled a new sequel, like something Mechs or whatever 6. So I don't know, look quite interesting. And then we also got an announcement for the sequel to Hades, a game that I own. I also played it, Lachlan, a bit. I know that's something that rarely happens for like an hour or two, but I definitely want to finish that one up. I think that one Game of the Year 1 or 2 years ago looks great. And then a series that I've tried to catch up on, but haven't finished entirely yet, won the Best Adaptation Prize, the new one that they unveiled here. And it went to Arcane, the Netflix original. Another one that we talked about on the show before, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, didn't edge it out there. I feel like so far, having seen Arcane, I would still give it to Cyberpunk for being the superior one, but other nominees included like Sonic, and I think the what was it, Uncharted as well. So I don't know, not like steep competition, but yeah. So that's all the stuff that happened at the Game Awards, and yeah, we also got the Sundance lineup. We won't be going over it. If we end up doing coverage for Sundance, I guess you can. We'll talk about it some more then, but. Lachlan, what did you think about those the wins, and I guess the iconic and odd nature of how this ended? The Game Awards ended with someone being arrested.
Look, okay, we'll just get the elephant out of the room with that guy who ran on stage when Elden
Tiny
Ring
elephant,
was
more like a mouse.
when the creators were doing their speeches. He also then ran onto stage. It was just it's the Will Smith slap of the Game Awards, is basically this guy.
Yeah.
It's the only interesting thing that kind of happened. So, you know what? The internet lost their mind because this guy had this opportunity to do something, and he kind of just did a meme, and it was quite funny. But the actual awards themselves, Elden Ring winning.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. It was an excellent game. I didn't play much of it. I played about 12 hours, and then it was just not for me. I played God of War. I finished it. It was great. Christopher Judd getting the best performance. who, by the
Mhm.
way, Al Pacino,
Yeah.
fucking Pacino announced that
Yeah.
award.
Yeah.
What the
That's where the
fuck?
cross.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so
that's crazy. That's where the
that was
crossover with a
crazy.
lot of the movies happens. As like games
Oh
get more
man,
and more established, they just cross over way more. And
yeah.
like the performance as Kratos, by yeah, you know his name. I'm blanking on it. Yeah, incredible performance from him there. So it's like,
Longest
you know,
speech of any award ever. He was speaking for
yeah.
like 15 minutes. But to give my quick run through of basically all the announcements. Armor
Mhm.
Core 6 from Software.
Yeah.
Super excited. You then got the Cyberpunk 2077 DLC coming out. That's already been announced, but who the hell cares? On
Mhm.
top of that as well, obviously, there's that new Judas game, which is made by the same creator as Bioshock, some of the greatest video games of all time. You've
Yeah.
also got the wickedly announced Hades 2, which
Mhm.
I enjoyed Hades with a passion, and I picked it up on a whim, and I really loved it. By the way, I'm the games guy in this freaking podcast. Ewan, why did you
I
even
try
announce
to
all the
be
game
more
stuff? I
like a
should be
game.
doing this section.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
you should. But I try to be. I definitely
uh,
wanna be. I give up Star Wars so easily, but not the games.
I'm also the
I
Star
kind of
Wars
want.
guy. And there's the
Yeah.
Star Wars trailer that came out with the Fallen
Yeah.
Order, Fallen Order sequel.
Sequel.
What is it called? Fallen Jedi Survivor or something
I
like
don't know.
that.
Still
I'm
falling.
super keen for that.
Yeah.
But for me, it was mainly the Death Stranding 2 trailer
Yeah.
that really caught my eye because, as you
Baby
said,
edition.
video games are becoming this thing where you've got mainstream actors acting in, this in the
Yeah.
video game world, and sometimes it's not even actors. I mean, as we spoke
Yeah.
last week, Guillermo del Toro did a Pinocchio movie. He was also visually captured to go into a video game and was a
Yeah.
main character. He didn't voice it, but he was visually the character himself.
Yeah.
So to have this kind of world crossover, it's kind of exciting because there are some really cool acting things, especially with the advancements of motion capture, thanks to a particular movie we're talking about today and the
Yeah.
advancements of
I was
motion
about to
capture.
say, James Cameron
Um,
is just the inventor of everything in
Every
advancement.
game,
He'd like
every
to
game
claim
that's
every
happened
single
should
one.
be thanking James Cameron. Get on your knees, bow down to our Lord and Savior James, our Orthodox Rabbi James Cameron, for his incredible advancents in the mocap technology. Because without
Yeah.
it, you won't be having a Norman Reedus in Death Stranding 2. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Also, Leah Seydoux
that was
and
the Game
probably
Awards.
Andy Serkis as the baby. Maybe. I don't know. Who's playing the
Yes.
baby? Is the baby playing the
Uh,
baby? Probably not.
It's just a motion captured baby.
You probably capture a whole bunch of crying on that. I don't know how much of that is
Yeah.
the story. I haven't played Death Stranding. I think you played a bunch of it, right?
Yeah, I played the entire thing. I was going to try to platinum the game, but I decided not to. I
Yeah.
bought it on PC many, many months back to replay it, but never got around because it is quite a long game in the sense
Mhm.
that you know
It's
how we
also
watch
slow.
Death Stranding as a video game is kind of like the what was
John
that movie
Demon?
that got announced for Sight and Sound
Yeah,
last
John Demon.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Guy
where it's a
23.
long thing and it's not really
Yeah.
it's not really like a video game where it
More an
has
experience.
aspects of
Yeah.
a movie, but it's not really a movie. Where the same thing with Death Stranding, where it's like it's a video game, but it has some interesting elements that make you go. Well, at the end of the day, it's a walking simulator. But you know,
Yeah.
it's Hideo Kojima, who, in my opinion, is one of the coolest video game creators. He's basically the who would I compare him to? That's an interesting one. I was gonna say Quentin
It's
Tarantino,
hard.
but I don't
No,
think it
I would
is.
say more like
I would
Spielberg
say
or
that he's
Scorsese, right?
I was gonna say he's kind of like a Scorsese, where because
Yeah.
I feel like Spielberg is very, this
Commercial
is my
still.
thing. Where
Yeah.
Scorsese has done a number of different things, and he's still quite creative in what he can do. So
But he's
I
not
would
as
say that
commercially
Hideo
successful,
Kojima
you
is the
know.
Scorsese.
But I guess
Yeah,
his games
well,
are quite successful. So I guess the Spielberg.
I wouldn't say that.
It's
I
a mix
wouldn't
of
say that
both.
they're as successful as a number of the other games that have come out. So I don't think that they're. I think they're still quite weird enough that people won't watch it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
it's like Taxi Driver. When Taxi Driver came out, no one wanted to fucking watch it, but then became a cult
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we didn't get to talk about that with Sight and Sound, but I've heard some other people have really interesting conversations about it. And the need for film culture and like film reception to evolve is kind of necessary. And for such a long time, the Sight and Sound list was really similar And now that they've kind of almost, I think, doubled or whatever, the amount of people who can vote in it, it just feels like, there's room for more films now. And I feel like
It's
it's
way more
always better.
diverse.
Yeah, the film canon is changing. It's something that's
Yeah.
moving, it's flowing, it's not stagnant, it's not all just a look back, although it's always a look back, but it's also a look back through a different lens each time, as
Yeah.
we move with time. So I feel like that makes it so interesting. And spaced out like 10 years apart, I feel like it's great. Yeah, I kind of want to dedicate a project to it to go over the films that I haven't seen yet in the Sight and Sound list. So be on the lookout, I guess, for that. As well as our trailer watch. Each Sunday, I go over a bunch of trailers. I haven't done it for the last 2 weeks because it's been kind of light on trailers. But later today, this episode will already be out, and I've already done it. Also, go check it out. The live stream is captured. You can go watch it on the channel as well. But I'll be doing that. But Lachlan, without further ado, we got a whole bunch of stuff that we watched this week. So let's just jump straight into what we've been watching. You want to kick it off with what you've been watching?
Well, let me kick it off by finishing what I said last week, and I had 30 minutes of 18.99 left on Netflix. And so far the show was really good.
Yeah.
It kind of fell apart for me, if I'm totally honest. It became too much
Yeah.
of look at us, look how freaking crazy this world's getting. For me, I just didn't like that. It's kind of similar to how Stranger Things has tried to expand it so quickly, and it's just too much going on. Yeah, I can see your cats are playing behind you, Ewan. They're very, very cute, adorable cats.
Yeah.
So $18.99. I'll tell you what, I will give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Because it's a TV show, not a movie, so I can't rate it on IMDb stars. It is an enjoyable watch. It's a fun time. You should definitely watch it. Some really interesting ideas in it. I also started Yellowstone, the show. Because I heard a number of good things about it. I love Kevin Costner. I love his name is his name Mark? His name is not Mark. Tyler Sheridan. That's his name. It was completely gone away from me. Taylor Sheridan, who is a incredible writer with his work. Also, just an incredible filmmaker in general. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff, Ewan. Do you want me to read some of his stuff out to you?
Sure, yeah. I don't think
Let me just read a couple.
Mainly,
I'll
right?
just read out his written stuff. So you've got Sicario, you've got Hell or High Water, you've got Wind River, you've got Sicario, Day of the Soldado, you've got the greatest Tom Clancy movie, Without Remorse, Those Who Wish Me Dead, and then you've got Yellowstone as well. So I really like his earlier stuff more than his more recent stuff, but at the end of the day, he's got a really interesting way of telling stories, and it's also put together by some really awesome directors at the same time. So Yellowstone, I've started getting into it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So the next one is Elvis. I had already seen this, but I forgot to log it on Letterboxd because I can't remember why I forgot to log it on Letterboxd, but we're here now. So I was going to give it just a 3.5 because that's what I felt like I wanted to give it. And then I went, I probably shouldn't do that just off of a whim of what it was like. Because I remember I've been seeing it on, social media and scrolling and seeing certain scenes. And to be fair, Baz Luhrmann is great at doing moments, but it gives me a fucking headache watching his movies because they're just so in your face and there's just so much. Yeah. I'm not saying he's a bad filmmaker, because he can definitely do a good job showing off this glamorous lifestyle, and he's one of the very visually focused filmmakers. He's just so good at what he does when it comes to the visual side of things. But for me, it's just too much. I feel like I'm about to have an epileptic fit watching some of his movies. And again, Elvis is the same. So I kind of remember that from first time watching it, but this time watching it, it was just too much for me. I couldn't be bothered. I gave it 2 stars out of 5.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. It's funny because
not
it's
an
kind of
enjoyable
moving
time
up
for me.
as a even higher contender for the Oscars, as some films are kind of losing momentum a bit. I feel like it's got a shot.
Yeah, and that's annoying me because
Yeah,
Ugh.
that's just the Oscar effect.
Look,
of
to be
biopics,
fair,
musical biopics.
Austin Butler's performance would
It's
probably
good.
be
Yeah.
good if the
Yeah.
story was coherent enough so that it wasn't just a
Yeah.
mismatch of a scene. Because
Mhm.
the scenes in these films, they kind of go from A to B to C to D to E to F to G, but there's no like beat in between to kind of bring you into that. It's just like an immediate like,
Yeah.
here's the scene, here's the scene, here's the scene, here's the scene. And it's just
Mhm.
so much goes on. In saying that though, Baz Luhrmann's individual scenes, like the individual scenes themselves, are excellent. They are very good, well crafted. I think the writing is alright between the characters, and I think for most parts, every performance besides Tom Hanks is quite good. Tom Hanks
Yeah.
playing the
Tom
character
Hanks
is
is
just.
horrible in this. It's really
I
bad.
thought he was comic relief. Is he comic
Yeah.
relief? He's probably comic
I don't
relief.
know.
Anyway,
I still don't know.
was there a reason we didn't do Elvis this year? By the way,
Yeah, well, I can't remember what the reason was. I think it was like interest that I thought that like there's better films to cover because I didn't really like it that much, but it's
yeah.
gained some momentum. Um but yeah, maybe we'll talk about it a bit more when it gets those like Oscar nominations, but yeah, never was a main review.
It came out in, I think it was May or June. What were we
Mhm.
doing in June? Oh, you know what it probably would have been? Top Gun Maverick, Obi-Wan. So we did episode 98. So this is the time of episode 100. So I think we scrapped doing Elvis and we did episode 100 instead.
Oh
Because
yeah. Oh
that was
yeah,
probably more
actually,
important
yeah.
than covering that. That's probably what it
Damn.
was. I think
That's
that's what it
already
was,
half
yeah.
a year ago.
Damn. Anyway, Elvis, 2 stars out of 5. You can find a good time out of it, but unless you want to take some sort of uh anti-inflammatory for your head or some sort of anti-epileptic
Something that slows
medication,
down the world, something mellow.
yeah,
I'd suggest.
then go watch this film. And the last thing I want to cover, I feel like this is like
Mhm.
usually what you do. You talk about a lot of films. This is a bit weird that I'm
No,
talking
that's
about a
great.
number
I
of
love
things this
this.
week.
I love
That's
taking a
crazy.
backseat
Okay,
here.
you only get to speak about one thing this week, Ewan. The last one is
Netflix.
a whodunit. Again, I'm on
Yep.
my little thing about watching 2022 films to catch up for my top 10 list.
Yeah.
See how they run. It was okay.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It was
And that's
okay.
another movie we didn't
Uh,
cover because it was just kind of all right. Not much to say.
It was okay. I
Yep.
didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I think there's a lot
Mhm.
of issues with it. I love Saoirse Ronan. She's wicked at what she
She is,
does
yeah.
in pretty much everything. Sam Rockwell as well has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
So
Those
does
seven
so does
psychopaths.
Adrian Brody as well.
Yeah.
But like it was a more enjoyable time for me than Elvis, especially because the comedy in this was fairly good. And funnily enough, the this kind of backdrop to this play reminded me a lot of the Broadway the play that went wrong that I actually saw in New York when I went to America.
Right.
It was last minute. We wanted to go see something. Of course, we're in New York, so we got to go see something on
Mhm.
Broadway. So we went and saw this essentially like this parody of a West End London play called the Play That Went Wrong, and basically it's like a disaster of like a play, and it was really fun to watch, and it gave me a
Yeah.
lot of comedy from that I enjoyed as well. So for
Mhm.
me, See How I Run was just a little bit better than Elvis because of the comedy. That's why I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. But it's definitely not
Yeah.
making it onto my top 10 list.
Yeah, it's also better than Amsterdam from David O. Russell. That's another whodunit this year.
I haven't seen that yet. Don't tell me because I've got to still watch it. I might
I
like
don't know.
it.
That's why I'm mentioning. I don't know if you need to watch it because it's not even.
Okay.
How many movies have you seen this year from 2022?
I don't know, like 100, maybe.
Like 100
or so.
It's not gonna be top 50. Like for
Oh,
sure.
really? That bad?
Yeah,
So
it's
I
really
probably
not good.
should not prioritize it. So I've got my watch list here.
Pearl. You haven't seen Pearl yet. I feel like Pearl should be up there
Pearl's not
next.
out yet though. Here.
It's on VOD, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, we can do this.
So-
We can do this after show. But heaps of stuff
Yeah, we
for
probably
you
should do this
to
after the show.
catch up on. I think we'll talk about it with new releases. But we'll get
Of course.
Spielberg sooner than later. Sooner than later. I don't know what kind of mess up went there up in my head, but yeah, Lachlan, let's talk about what I've watched. I'll keep it short. That's a lie. No, I'll try and keep it short. I watched a whole bunch of Netflix's new stuff that was already out a week ago, but I was just too busy. I didn't get to it, and I tried to watch all of those. Caught the Norwegian film Troll. We did like a trailer watch a couple of weeks ago, Lachlan, if you remember, and it was basically this Godzilla-like creature that attacks a Norwegian town, and it's like those American films. It's just there to show off we got military power, but the military is kind of dumb, so we need someone to step in and have like a human connection with them to like it's very by the numbers, but it's okay. It's not better than any of those American films. It's pretty much the same. Um, it was an animated adaptation of Scrooge that was it has that like cheap animation style where everyone's super flat and the lighting is kind of harsh. It's just really unpleasant to watch, but it's just another like really safe adaptation of Scrooge. Nothing to write home about there. Also not too great. And then move over the after series and move over 365 days. We got a period piece with enough pizzazz and sex and nakedness to challenge it. The adaptation of the very steamy novel Lady Chatterley's Lover hit Netflix, and yeah, it's a sexy movie. Lots of sex that they had. And I kind of Googled the story to see how many adaptations they've been. And there've been a shit ton of adaptations of the story. But yeah, kind of all right. It's what you can expect. The story is not like nothing to write home about if you go there for the intensity of the sex scenes and the lust and the love. But yeah, that's that. Netflix is doing a whole bunch of like these horrible Christmas and holiday films. One of them being the Noel Diary that I checked out because I think it hit like #1 in charts on Netflix. It's horrible. It's the Noel Diary is a pun on a character that's named Noel. And Noel as in Christmas. It's really really stupid. It's like a Hallmark movie, but I guess Netflix does them as well now. And then lastly, on Netflix, Jonah Hill did a documentary on his not psychiatrist, on his shrink. They call him he calls himself a shrink as well. And I think this is an interesting one, Lachlan. It's not like a great documentary, I'd say, because it's very much about the process of Jonah Hill not knowing how to go about this documentary. So he tries to be like open about the process of them simulating a day of therapy, but they're shooting it for over 2 years. So it's like interesting for that aspect. And it's great for people who are not in therapy, and then they kind of maybe get some tips on what you would get out of a good therapy session, but they should probably still go to actual therapy themselves. That's Stutz. And then lastly, Apple TV Plus's contender this year for the Oscars. I don't know what else they got that's really big because Scorsese's film, is it even at Apple anymore, or is Paramount doing that? Anyways, that's coming out not until 2023, but Emancipation, the return of Will Smith in the leading acting category, potentially getting another nomination for this, I guess, slave story, emancipation story of it's basically a survival film from Antoine Fuqua, who did the Training Day films and Equalizers. Has worked a whole bunch with Denzel Washington, and now here with Will Smith, we get a survival story that's not really focusing. I don't know. The intentions aren't really at the right place here. I feel like it's a survival story of a slave trying to escape slavery, and then those films is like, okay, what's the purpose? Are you just putting misery on screen for the sake of it, for awards? Or I don't know why you would want to really tell the story other than like, ooh, he gives a great performance, but he fights a crocodile in this, Lachlan. So it's a bit over the top, and that's Emancipation. That's all I've been watching, apart from my little project that I started in short form. Go check it out if you want to on YouTube and on TikTok. You can find those little reviews. I'm going over every Best Picture winner. It's been a dreadful experience so far because there's not a lot of good stuff, Lachlan, if you can remember from the late 20s, early 30s. There's a bunch of stuff that is just not really hitting that hard. But I'm going through all of them. And yeah.
Avatar time?
Avatar time. Let's get blue. Don't be blue. Let's get blue and talk about Avatar. One of the rare instances where Lachlan and I get to review a film. It's over a decade old by now. The sequel has been in the making apparently for a decade plus as well.
Ridiculous.
It's for James Cameron's Avatar.
A paraplegic Marine dispatched to the moon Pandora on a unique mission becomes torn between following his orders and protecting the world he feels is his home.
Wow, does that read like a multi-billion-dollar film? I wouldn't say that like from the first glance.
Nope.
But that's certainly what Avatar did with a budget of $237 million. It made $2.91 billion. That's a B, not an M. Dollars.
That's almost three,
still,
Ewan.
It's almost free. Hey, honestly,
We should just round that up to
there.
3.
It will definitely get there. I feel like this movie is gonna claim to like 3.2, 3.3 in its lifespan because we got sequels announced until 2028 for this franchise.
Oh,
and they haven't even done a second one yet. so that's Avatar. It's been out for a while, so our ratings are actually not even at all affected by recency bias. So we got a 3.5 on Letterboxd, a 7.8 on IMDb, and an 83 on Metacritic. That's higher than I expected, if I'm being honest. But this film also comes at a runtime quite long, 162 minutes, not as long as I think the 190 minutes that the sequel will have. I'm seeing it quite soon, actually, when this episode releases. I'll probably be in the theater right then and there watching it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But before I get to watch that, in preparation for the sequel, Lachlan and I rewatched Avatar. So yeah, Lachlan, it's been 10 years. Maybe we can share our stories of how we first went to see Avatar, because it's been a while.
Oh, that's perfect. I would love to share how I actually watched Avatar because it's not where you might think. Because obviously, back in 2009, the hype for this film was real. Like, there was a massive hype around it. And I was quite young back then in 2009. I was 9 years old. That's how old I was. I was very, very, very young.
Hey, together
but
we
I
make
still
something you can never
remember-
forget.
Yeah.
I was 11.
I remember the excitement around it. I remember the awe factor around Avatar because I do remember that from 2009. Funnily enough, I never saw the film in cinemas. However, the way I saw Avatar was I rented it from the local Video Easy, which is the Australian Blockbuster. We had Blockbuster, but Video Easy was like the Australian chain of movie rentings. So we rented Avatar, and I went home and watched it, and I was amazed. I really was. Like I do remember watching it for the first time and being like, this is awesome. And then I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, it does that to you. I don't know. This movie had a really unique run of being in theaters for so long. I think it came out in December or November and was in theaters until June. I think it was in the top 10 for like 15 weeks. Something that rarely happens unless you're a sequel to Top Gun. But I think I caught this in the theater. And I remember having it's actually the local theater that is still open to this day here, which, you can't take for granted nowadays with lots of chains closing down. But it had those like really thick, like red 3D goggles that I had to put on that you had to return. After that, I think they had a whole bunch of disposable ones, and these were like the premium ones that were a bit better. I also remember my family going to see this film, and they charged extra for it being overlong and 3D, so it was like the most expensive cinema going experience as well, which might add to like the total of this really high gross because theater chains were like, well, this is over 160 minutes long, or I think like some places charged over 140 minutes already, or 150. And yeah, you got to rent this 3D goggles. So give us another $10 or something like that. And also to me, I feel like it didn't strike a chord with me as much. I don't think it stayed with me. It was one of like my quintessential movie going experiences. I feel like at that point, I felt like the fighting was probably the most exciting stuff that happens later on. And when the destruction of nature happens, you're like, no, don't do that. And I feel like the death scenes, although they don't seem to be consequential because we literally see everyone who dies return in the sequel, apart from I guess Michelle Rodriguez. Uh, so I don't know. It feels a bit
That's
odd
because
there,
she
but
got blown
like
up by the mothership.
she did get blown up by the mothership, which was a bigger thing. But yeah, Sigourney Weaver is returning in the sequel, right? And then same as Stephen Lang. So I don't know. To me, also not really a super memorable experience, but one of the first times I got to see an overlong 3D film. And one I think from recollection that did it quite decently, you know. And then after that, we can blame Avatar for having a whole bunch of era where for a 5-6 year period everything had to be in 3D. Um, but yeah, Lachlan, what do you think about like Avatar overall? I think you hinted at that it's like not a movie that's really stays with you or has any like cultural impact, but somehow it made a shit ton of
Yeah.
money.
I said back in the last episode that Avatar is the most successful film, whilst also being the most culturally insignificant film
Mm,
at the same time.
yeah.
Because no matter what, it will, when you first watch Avatar the first time, you go, yeah, this is a great film. And if you rewatch it, you still go, yes, this is a great film. However,
Mhm.
I believe due to the lack of immediate sequels, it did not solidify itself as a cultural icon. It
Yeah.
is known as the Blue People Avatar because Avatar The Last Airbender is a significantly better use of the word avatar at this current
Mhm.
point in time. I think that people find when they say avatar, most of the time you're referring to The Last Airbender. And
Yeah.
there obviously was these articles I've recently read that they changed to Avatar The Last Airbender to The Last Airbender with the name The Last Airbender at the end of it because of James Cameron's Avatar, even way before it was being
Mhm.
produced. Moving on. This film is good. There's
Yeah.
no denying that this is a good film. And anyone who says it's a bad film is not watching it because you're
Mhm.
looking at one of the best living filmmakers to date, one of the best modern living filmmakers to date, who is so selective with his films that he directs. It is ridiculous. He will direct something, he'll just produce a bunch of stuff, and then he'll come back to it. James Cameron is so selective with what he does, but he is one of the best craftsmen in this field. He knows how to do action, and that is why I agree with you on the point that you said. The action in this film is the best part.
Yeah.
But the thing that links it all together, the story of this uh, indigenous native tribe going up against an invading force is something that
Mhm.
we've seen before.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that this story adds on top that's not new and unique in that way of storytelling. If we
Mhm.
kind of refer it back to, the
Yeah.
Pinocchio we've recently watched, there's a lot
Mhm.
of Pinocchio stories out there, but this is the only one that I can really remember that deals with a completely different topic instead, and that's death.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
this film, Avatar, is like any other film where there's sort of like a, you know, we're destroying the planet bad kind of thing. That doesn't add any extra elements into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not me dissing it in a way that's, hey, this they shouldn't have done this. They should make more of a message because at the end of the day, it's still a good film. But
Mhm.
that is why it's not solidified itself as, when I say Avatar, as, oh, you mean blue people Avatar, blue cat people Avatar. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's like it gives you very simple characters. Like you could go say about Jake Sully because he hooked up, because he got his dick wet, he's on their side. Uh, that's essentially what happens. And I feel like it wants to go into some themes that might be a bit deeper than that, but it has really one-noted characters. The bad guy who cares about money, the bad military guy, and there's no, I guess, nuance to them. They could all just be like these figures that you just move around and shuffle. I don't know. To me, I feel like this is visually really stunning, and think that's what James Cameron does well. That's what uh Spielberg is also super great at, making these iconic shots and moments. But with other films that Cameron has done, the hero at the center with Sigourney Weaver in an Aliens film, also having like the themes of motherhood woven into it, it works better because it's like, well, alien is just this creature, or aliens, they are just these creatures that want to kill you. And here, when you bring in the themes of, I guess, just overall like colonialism bad, it's like, yeah, okay, that's obviously, but it's too simple for a story like that. I feel like it should be a bit more complicated if you actually want to tackle this. And it seems like in the sequel they're stepping away from that from so far. Or like it's less a part of it, and it's way more about just them as within the Avatar tribe. I don't know how much of the humans are a part of the sequel. But yeah, I like, especially the one-liners. I don't they don't fit this movie as well when they happen, especially when like our leads say them, and they fit way better in other films like in Terminator 2 or in Aliens.
I was really waiting for Sam Worthington to say yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, for some reason. Don't ask me why, but it just felt like that's the quippiness that this film tried to go for. Speaking of this weird, element that's in this film, there's so many little things like that just it seems like it works in a different sort of genre, but just not here. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing we complain about on this podcast, I feel like, is voiceovers. And
Yeah.
I will admit,
Oh yeah.
I'm not a fan of voiceovers. I don't think
Yeah.
they're completely necessary. They're easy for exposition, and they're useful in a number of situations. Okay,
They're pretty bad in
they're
this.
useful. My
Yeah.
God, are they terrible in this?
They're
I can't
so
tell
horrible.
if, is
Yeah.
by the way, it kind of matches the opening scene where at first it matches. Okay, at first the voiceover that Sam Worthington's doing as Jake, where he's talking about the loss of his brother, he sounds like he's a noir gangster. He's like, yeah, Mr. Johnny on the spot here stabbed my brother to death because of some money because he owed the big mob boss. And I was like, okay, it's like this interesting kind of mob thing, and there's none of that. You get the two guys in the suit standing behind him as he looks at his brother dying in a little coffin, not dying, but dead in a coffin, and that's like this gangster sort of style. But then it continues on. This entire voiceover continues on where it feels like it's a voiceover from a crime noir style voiceover in a sci-fi action movie. It doesn't fit at all.
No.
At all.
I feel like you can bridge it in a way that he does those like video logs for junction of the film, and I think those can work. They also don't really work as well because I remember there's a story, there's a part of the story where like Sigourney Weaver's character, like they play a part of it where like Jake Sully says like, well, they won't ever move, so this is a waste of time, and then everyone's like, no, it's like, well, obviously. I don't know. It's like, is that surprising to you? It's like some stupid stuff like that where it's like mainly exposition and moving the plot forward. And when voiceover is used in that way, it's really distracting because you're like, well, visually tell us the story otherwise. That doesn't need to just a quick debrief. I feel like they're totally fine as an opening thing to contextualize the world you're about to enter, because that can be like really confusing.
Especially because this film does open up very quickly into this world. Like you
you're straight.
It's like there. One shot. You're seeing him open up from a cryogenic sleep. Immediately, it's an external of the ship to a shot, very beautiful shot of the ship, by the way, turning into a reflection of Pandora, and then you're there, and it's just, it throws you in. You're like 15 minutes in, you see a blue thing in a vat, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, this is your avatar. Oh cool, their avatar. What I get it. What's the thing? I mean, and then you're in. Like it's so quick. It throws you in there. So the voiceover is necessary in a way, especially if he wants to get into this film so quick, because he's only got 162 minutes to spare. You don't want to slow down and give a bit more detail.
3 hours.
I mean, he's only 3 hours. We've only got 3 hours to do this, guys. Come on, we got to rush through this opening sequence.
Only 8 more movies.
Like it throws you in quite quickly with how it throws you into a lot of information, and you're kind of just expected to pick up on it. And for most people, they will, because the voiceover is very good when it comes to describing it, but at the same time, it just tonally doesn't fit with this film. And then C, there's just so much visually that's weird as well, because you're thrown into this very CGI world with these 2D flat humans. Now, my issue with the CGI is not so much that it hasn't aged well. It's just that some particular shots are going to look, and I can tell, look so much better if you're watching it in 3D. And that's the issue and the gamble that James Cameron has made, is that some of the opening shots where you have like that like machine driving past as Jake kind of rolls onto Pandora, it's very sort of, it feels like it's a bit too close and too far at the same time, as if it was like a 3D shot. So there's a lot of CGI shots, especially at the opening of this film, that feel like they had 3D in mind, and that 3D is the future. And now that we're in 2022 and 3D is basically dead, some of these CGI shots don't hold up as well. In saying that, to not just shit on the CGI, some of these CGI shots are some of the most impressive CGI shots I have seen in a long, long, long time.
I feel like all of the character stuff, with the Navi people,
the mocap,
it holds up to me. I think
it looks so good.
Still,
looks incredible. I even think some of the flying scenes look incredible. A lot of the majority CGI stuff looks really good. Even the
mech
stuff flying in the ships, the mech stuff looks kind of meh. It doesn't look that great. But again, it's because they have a human in that suit. It's the same thing when you watch
the Hulk thing, right?
What's that Marvel? Yeah, with the Hulk in the suit in the Iron Man suit. His head's just floating. It just doesn't feel right. So, to be 2009 and still have some 2020 problems like they do with the MCU CGI with a head in the suit kind of bobble, you kind of still get that with the guys in the mech suits, but there's still
James Cameron
a
also
weird
made
thing.
that problem. If you
Yeah. But he also created this whole new genre of filmmaking with this motion capture advancements that he did. It
was already
still,
there. He just used them more, like the stuff in.
He just was like, we should use this.
He popularized it. He claims to have founded it. It's been around before. There's
No, he
likes to do that.
I'll believe him. I'll believe him in that one.
All right.
I'll believe that.
He also
James
was the
Cameron
first one to
did that.
shoot underwater, with water as well. So he Titanic is retconned.
Exactly.
Didn't do that. One.
So speaking of the motion capture stuff, obviously he had a camera with him kind of shooting it, and that gives a lot of this handheldness that these shots have. So I wanted to ask your thoughts on, I guess, the overall cinematography, because we've started talking about CGI, and this is going to lead into a conversation about cinematography. So visually, this film holds up, I think, for the majority of it. What do you think?
I think the opening parts don't hold up as well, where they focus way more on the handheld stuff, where it almost pretends to be like part of this scientific experience with someone's a fly on the wall that's also holding a camera and just moving along. I don't know if that was motivated by the 3D-ness of like, you'll move your head and the 3D thing will also move, or what the motivation was there to make it like really dynamic. That doesn't work as well for me. Once we get like to full CG territory for some of the like nature stuff in the Navi, I don't know what the planet's called, in that world, I think it looks stunning and amazing, and all the battle stuff is also like shot in a great well. What do you think about the cinematography? Because a lot of it is just CGI, right? It's a bit,
like a lot of it is CGI. I still think that it has a very strong presence with the I guess, the handheldness, because it really puts you
Yeah.
in that perspective. And
Mhm.
that's a very important thing if you're trying to portray emotion visually, is handheld gives you that sort of, oh, I'm kind of boots on the ground with these guys
It
in
seems
this
less
kind of battle scene,
polished.
and that draws you
Yeah.
in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
that documentary aspect of it. When you're
Mhm.
using handheld, it feels like you are there with them. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a unique choice, because you can look at, I guess, the Planet of the Apes films from, I guess, me trying to remember it now. They always seem to be kind of like locked off motion capture. There's obviously camera movement, but it's not as handheld as what Pandora is, because that's
Yeah.
going to be a big film that we can compare the motion capture to, because it's the only
Mhm.
other one that has essentially just massive like CG characters,
Yeah.
the apes, obviously using the same capture technology. So
Yeah.
for me, the cinematography of this film is stunning. It's great. James Cameron knows what he is doing when it comes to the visual side of this film.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's the same with every other film in the past. There's not a single James Cameron film that I can't think of that I just go, yeah, cinematography is okay. I always think, yes, this cinematography is excellent. And it's because there's these
Mhm.
little bits of, just a whip pan here, or even just my most memorable shot of this film is essentially Jake flying onto what's his name, Colonel I can't remember his name, Stephen Lang's character. I just
Stephen
know the
Lang.
actor's name. He like
Mhm.
Jake lands on the ship, tries to throw the grenade, he throws it off. Anyway, it's Stephen Lang, puncture, like holding his breath, trying to shoot him off, shoots him off. He gets into the
Mhm.
mech suit, he runs off, the whole ship explodes, he lands, like
Yeah.
he like you see the camera, it points up, it whips down to him landing on the ground with a big thud, and then
Mhm.
immediately the ship crashes behind him, and it's the sickest shot in the movie. It is the coolest shot in the movie. It's, you go,
Yeah.
that's a badass moment, and you hate this guy,
Mhm.
he's a piece of shit. But you go, that's a cool shot. That was
Yeah.
awesome. I love that moment, and
Yeah.
I wish there was more moments like that where I went, that was awesome. But there's not, unfortunately. But anyway, that was the best moment of the film visually for me, if it coming to the cinematography.
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of moments that work quite well in the fight later on. I also think that the fight between when he's in the suit and he has like that really big knife that he can just like that he flips
Oh,
around
so
as they
funny.
fight.
Yeah.
It's it's a bit over the top, like such a super villain at that point. But yeah, it works well in some moments, but in others feel so introductory to the world. Like Jake Sully being in the Avatar out in the nature for the first time, and he touches those I don't know whatever flowers or what they are, and they just
Flunk, the ones that make the
get
flunk sound and they just
yeah,
like shrink down.
and they shrink together, revealing creature, big creature, and then he's like, "Ooh, stay calm, you gotta stand your ground." And it's like silly thing where like something moves behind him. It feels uh cliched in a lot of moments, and the handheld stuff kind of mm, helps give it more identity. And I feel like
Mm.
that's what it's lacking, to stick to that identity a bit more, to make it something unique. Where
Yeah, no,
yeah, I feel like it's
the
a
whole
mold of a lot
Pandora
of
world
different
is
things.
creative. The
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
Pandora world is super creative and super unique, and there's these ideas of an alien species we've never seen before, but the story that they're
Discount
telling is
Hayao
just the same
Miyazaki.
old story.
Mhm.
Jesus, all right. That's a statement right there. You should get that
I'm
tattooed on
well,
you, man.
it's I
I
mean,
think
Hayao Miyazaki is like in my top 3 favorite filmmakers of all time. And James Cameron
yeah,
isn't. I
true.
can already tell you that. So it's like, to me, this feels a bit like more, well, we should care about nature. But also make a shit ton of money, because I was the guy who told the alien people to put an S at the end, and that's gonna make us a whole bunch of dollars. Like that's how I see James Cameron. Where like he is really articulately crafting like advancements in filmmaking, and that's really his focus. I don't know why it takes him 13 years to do this. I don't think like we needed 13 years for the film he's about to do, but I'll be the judge of that once I've seen it. And yeah, Hayao Miyazaki also takes a shit ton of time
You
to
know
make
how
his
I
stuff,
said
but it feels
earlier that uh, Hideo Kojima is the Scorsese
yeah.
of the game world? Well, I feel like James Cameron is
Mhm.
essentially like Valve when it comes to the Half-Life series in video games. Because Half-Life, Valve
Yeah.
always says that they don't want to do another Half-Life game until there's advancements, like an interesting physics engine and things like that. That's what they did with Half-Life
Mhm.
2, and then Half-Life
What they
Alyx
did
was
with
like
VR.
VR. So there's a
Yeah.
big. It's the same with James Cameron. James Cameron doesn't want to do another movie until there's a massive advancement in sort of technology. Titanic, massive into the CGI, massive
Mhm.
CGI shots, really successfully CGI shots, and also have another very successful film. And then he does like if we go to James Cameron's IMDb page and look at his directed stuff, none of his produced or written and all that stuff because there's
Yeah.
too many of those, but his actual directing things. So you've got
Like
a bunch
Piranha
of
2, the swimming.
like stuff. You've got The Terminator. Sick,
Yeah.
Young director makes a cool thing. Aliens. He gets a sequel for a very successful horror film. What are you going to do? Make a bunch of fucking money. Why? Because you want to show off that you've got your stuff. Then you've got a whole bunch of music videos. You got The Abyss. Have you seen The
Yeah.
Abyss?
I
Have you
haven't.
seen The Abyss?
Also, haven't seen True Lies. Yeah, I haven't seen those
You
two.
haven't seen The Abyss. Okay.
No.
So yeah, it's The Abyss. It's a I don't think I want to get into The Abyss that much. And I don't think I want to get into True Lies either. I kind of just want to get straight to the more interesting stuff as we get to more and more
Mhm.
advancements, because there's still a lot of like really exciting like CGI
I mean, the man
stuff
hasn't made
in
a
The
movie in
Abyss
13
and the Terminator
years.
2. Yeah, he hasn't made a movie in 13 years, but there's a lot of like computer generated advancements within Terminator 2 and The Abyss. You move on,
Yeah.
you've got True Lies, and then you've got Titanic. Titanic, massive CGI scenes, massive CGI shots, the whole ship CGI, Leonardo DiCaprio CGI. Then you've got a whole bunch of like smaller things, and then you've got Avatar. Avatar, cool, big successful hit. What is he doing next? Avatar 345.
Mm-hmm.
2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5.
It's a bit disappointing, right? That all of his efforts are in that world where, if it's for the sake of the argument of, I feel like it doesn't make sense though. Hear me out on this, because the time for non-franchise films, for singular entities of film to be successful, is long gone. There might be one or the other outlier, but there's not a shit ton of money on it. Since 2009, since I guess his last movie has been made, Marvel has just, steamrolled through what it means to be successful in the business. And they're not
Yeah.
advancing anything in the slightest. They're also mismanaging their budget, spending way too much for not that much of an advancement. It's going to be interesting to compare the underwater stuff from Wakanda Forever with Avatar, because it's going to be leaks. It's going to be so different. It's going to be so much better in this. And I can already tell, because that's a focus that they want to go on, and it's not just a character that Marvel has on a sheet and then they put it in there. So for that sake of that argument, it doesn't make sense. For me, I'm reluctant to see where he wants to take the story for 3, 4, and 5. But I feel like if there's money in there, he can also do the stuff that he wants to do with Avatar that he might not get to do if he were to take like another original movie idea. But I might be off there. I don't know. That's just like how I see the industry at the moment.
I guess so. I said this when we first started talking about like our general thoughts, is that this film wasn't successful because it didn't just have immediate sequels. Because as we've seen with any kind of very popular film, there's sequels that follow it. If we think about most recently, you've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe as an example, but it's the same with any big saga. Star Wars had a Wicked, A New Hope. Awesome. It was a wicked movie, but it immediately had sequels. And they were just as good, if not significantly better. You had Lord of the Rings as an example. And then sequels. You had Harry Potter and then sequels. You have, Terminator, you have sequels, Aliens, you have sequels, you have all of these sequels, and they have solidified themselves within popular culture because they have those sequels. It's taken them 13 years to make this sequel, yes, but if they are able to do something interesting with this story, which if we look at Avatar: The Way of the Waters, that plot summary on IMDb, Jake Sully
Mhm.
lives with his newfound family formed on the planet of Pandora. Note, planet of Pandora, not the moon Pandora. They've changed it to a planet. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what they previously started, Jake must work with the Neytiri and the army of the Navari race to protect their planet. So, here's what's going to happen. They're going to bring back the Earthlings, okay?
Yeah.
Don't know how long it's
Stephen
been,
Lang.
but they're going to bring back Stephen Lang in some sort of form, in some sort of form, and I have an idea of what they're going to do. But they're going to bring back Earth, the armies. Stephen Lang, I reckon, is dead. He's brown bread.
No.
What has
much like
happened
Aliens, there's multiple Stephen Langs.
There's multiple of him. There's multiple Stephen Langs.
And he can go through metal. So it's a clash of
Metal.
everything James Cameron has done before.
But more importantly, I feel like what's going to happen is, you know how there's like this big connection, like the whole planet speaks to each other with that like root network, and they can somehow transfer
the soul
consciousness.
thing.
Do you reckon that Away, whatever its name is, took the consciousness of Stephen Lang and is going to put it in a newborn, like, blue person?
Maybe, well, because Sigourney Weaver is also back, but she died, there.
Yeah,
Didn't she died.
Do you reckon you could get, they took her consciousness and put it into a newborn blue baby?
Yeah, it's called Retacon, and it's, powerful creature.
Anyway, essentially, like, what they're going to do is they're going to expand the idea of Pandora. They're going to expand different cultures, different tribes. They're going to have new animals. But more importantly, they're going to be going underwater. Something that's never been really explored, especially on our planet. It's still super unexplored. So it can go creatively anywhere, and it's going to be super exciting. So hopefully there's going to be some super crazy, like super powerful underwater creature that they're going to kind of lock their genital tentacles with. And do you like that? Genital tentacles.
I like the tentacle stuff,
Tentacle
so much.
genitals. With, and they're going to communicate.
That's
with
actually
each
how
other.
they get blue. They go underwater, then an octopus comes,
for
sprays
so
them
long
blue, and then
that they hold their breath for so long.
Yeah,
that's why.
they're so
because
tall.
even to the air to them is still toxic, so they have to hold their breath from when they're born. That's why they're blue, because they can't breathe.
Can the Navi people breathe underwater? Is that like, because
I would
try
assume
to
no.
not watch the trailers as much because I kind of want to go in not having seen like the big money shots, which I feel like they've successfully. Well, I've kept away from them. I don't know how much they show in the trailers, but
yeah.
I
don't think so.
they
I don't think that they
much.
can breathe underwater. I think that there's a tribe that lives near the water. They don't live underwater. They're still similar to them. They're a different shade of blue though. They're more like a greeny color. Okay?
Right.
Just keep that in mind. So you'll be able to tell the differences between the two tribes, okay? You'll be able to tell the differences.
When they put all their heads together, they form the Infinity Navi.
Jeez, yes. That's exactly what's going to happen.
We got to keep track of Stephen Lang's chin as we go along in this franchise.
Anyway, I don't know where we're going with this conversation.
Nutsack like. I had something totally different when you mentioned Star Wars and the sequels, because I just wanted to mention that Bob Chapek, the guy who's not the CEO anymore, was kind of holding off all of the Star Wars projects to not go along. And now that Iger is back, I feel like we are probably going to be back on track with getting some new like theatrical Star Wars things as well. Where I feel like James Cameron does not behold to anyone, because I don't even know which studio is doing. I know that I guess Disney with Fox. But but it doesn't feel like like Disney has that much to say over Avatar, and his creative input there.
James Cameron is just doing his own thing at this point. He has his own little office at Disney that he can just sit in.
Yeah. Do you reckon, we get Walt Disney's head is frozen somewhere, and James Cameron is just gonna be in a water tank until he like disassembles his earthly body? I feel like that could be a potential thing in the future.
He's
What do
making
you?
he's making
Yeah.
Avatar sequels until the very distant future.
Well, I mean, the obvious innovation for the new one is just, I guess, water, big time. But like, I guess it's hard to tell. But what do you think would be advancements that we could even make that justify the potential sequels? Which now he is scheduled to do every 2 years, and he's already shot 3, right?
The advancements in visuals, so I don't think there is going to be any advancements. I think that this is just Disney cashing in on a very successful IP, and they want to make some
Yeah.
sequels off of it. So I feel like
Mhm.
he's just in for the sequels because this is kind of like his baby in a way, and he wants to kind of make a sequel that's worthwhile. So maybe right, maybe Avatar: Way of the Water is the aliens that we were originally wanting to see when Avatar first came
Right.
out. Maybe that now that you've got an established world, established characters, established villains, established everything, right? You can start
Mhm.
bringing in some cool, creative new ideas, and he can have
Yeah.
a bit of fun with it, right? As much as we
Ye-
all love the Terminator,
Mhm.
Terminator 2 is the better movie,
Yeah. And now here, all
right?
I'm waiting for is, I think Jake Sully has kids in this as well, right?
Yes, he
His
does.
new family. So now I don't want the voiceover from Jake Sully anymore. I want it from one of his children, because that's how he does
Yes.
cinema, to set up the next generation.
Maybe they can breathe on the water. No, it doesn't look like they're breathing. Okay, no, they're not breathing on the water, I don't think.
Well, something that I also found really funny is that, like, you get like a lot of technological advancements and like something groundbreaking in the cinema sphere, and then when the Navi talk, it's the translation font is papyrus. Like, it's just yellow. Well, I feel like there's one more moment that I would love to talk about before we close out our preparations for
I know you want to talk about the
the
sex
Avatar
scene.
sequel. What's
Oh, no.
I don't even
You
know
don't
which
want to talk about the
sex
sex
scene.
scene?
Oh, did you? Well, I want to talk. No,
The one where they
the
touch
tree
genitals,
falling.
genitals, tentacles. Tentacles, genitals.
The
One of the
genticles
words.
is what they called.
Genticles.
Yeah. No, the tree falling, because I feel like that's a really impactful moment that
Ah.
also works super well. That's just terrifying. As like this tree,
Yep.
this big old tree falls, and like everything kind of darkens. It's really carefully done shadow work that's subtle, but it's so terrifying that, like, there's light coming through from some point, but that light that we got as a source for what we are seeing is kind of cut off because this huge tree is falling. And
Hmm.
the aftermath is a bit funny because everything is kind of, it looks like women talking, or like the Emancipation, to drop some recent film references here. But it's like super desaturated because this tree has died and everything around it has died. It's a bit like over the top when it comes to the color.
Very
Oh,
over the top.
I kind of want to talk about, unless you got something to say about the tree. I feel like the color grade is another really interesting thing because it's a bit over vibrant a lot of the time. Would you agree, or do you like the style?
I would agree, but I think it works just because it's a distant planet.
Yeah.
Essentially, there is in the extended cut essentially like a scene on Earth, and it's a little bit grim. So it is a nice juxtaposition of this beautiful, lush Earth, or this beautiful, lush planet that they're on, or moon in the original, but the sequel's a planet.
Yeah.
But essentially, I don't hate it because it's a beautiful, very untouched, pristine planet, not destroyed by pollution, and it's a great example. And then it makes that scene that's very undersaturated, and there's no the black and white scene in this, the artistic indie scene in this film. It has a bit more weight
Yeah.
to it because it's significantly less saturated. Now, I feel like the saturation is just out of its mind in that scene. It's just like the guy who was editing just went whoops and slipped all the way down
So
to
how
0.
green do you want this? And he was like, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like James Cameron had the saturation and he just kept going up and up and up. And they're like, hey, man, you can stop. He's like, no, just a little bit further. So it has its place. I think it's fine. But, man, you aren't kidding. The scene where the tree falls over and it is just black and white, it's just, why is it so black and white right now?
Yeah. Mhm. And then it kind of goes back to not being like that after all, because it's like I don't know, it feels like it's guiding you with how you're feeling. It's like the wonderful natureness thing. And when they get into the fight and like, the earth or Pandora is like fighting as well with all the creatures, it's really vibrant again. So I don't know, it goes like back and forth to whatever is like the most suitable for the scene. Um, to me, nothing stands out when it comes to the score. Didn't even have any notes on that. I feel like it's just really simple
Nah, there's nothing
overall.
special about the music. It's good.
Yeah,
It does the job.
it's all right. And dude, I think that kind of brings us to the end of our overall discussions. Other than, I guess, the performances in this, I feel like are pretty solid. Feel like the two female leads with Zoe Saldana and Sigourney Weaver are my highlights. All of the other ones are a bit more over the top. Even Michelle Rodriguez is a bit like, she's just playing a like stereotype type of character. And
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver is just one of the best actresses ever. She brings so much depth to even a character that is kind of also like everyone else, kind of simple. The scientist who wants the best for whatever she's observing, because she's the biologist. She's about that. But she brings
Yeah.
so much to it that I don't think like she gets more out of the role than is essentially there. And in the same Worthington, there's a reason why this guy hasn't like exploded into the stratosphere of stardom when it comes to like his performances, because he could be exchanged with any other actor in this role. It wouldn't really change much, in my opinion. Um, but yeah,
He
Lachlan.
should be changed with Al Pacino. Recast
Yeah,
with Al Pacino
I want the guy who from the Game Awards, that short kid,
or
to
Joe
play him.
Pesci
Joe Pesci as well. Yeah, the Avatar goes
or
Irish.
Timothy Chalamet.
That's actually not outside of the realm of possibility that like Timothy
Ability
Chalamet
is a
pops
pretty good
into this
idea.
franchise, because
Yeah,
is
yeah.
he's already doing stuff in Dune with people with blue eyes. Why not extend that to the
And
skin
he's
color and
already
just
been
do
to
blue
no,
people?
he wasn't I thought he went to space in Interstellar, but he didn't. Don't worry, he's the sun in
Anyways,
Interstellar.
Lachlan, let's put a rating to this 13-year-old film, Avatar 2009. Um, Still got lots of air left, not the last airbender. What do you give that film in a rating out of 5?
2.5 stars out of 5.
Wow, okay. I thought that you were gonna land on it more positively than me. To me, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. I think that now I feel like I'm
Wow,
praising it, but
3,
I thought that was
man.
low overall. And we definitely lower
Ewan,
than
you're the indie guy.
the Disney lover.
You're the guy.
Yeah,
You're the guy who dislikes the mainstream films. You
I'm
should,
playing into the
because this is not
stereotype.
the Lighthouse. You should hate it.
I actually liked The Lighthouse. I didn't love The Lighthouse, if I'm being completely honest.
But
So,
clearly, you
turning a
loved
new leaf.
Avatar.
I did. I loved it. That's why I'm giving it a
Mm.
3 out of 5, which is totally my rating that I give to movies that I absolutely adore. But yeah, that's that. It's gonna be a Avatar filled week back to back. Next week we'll be back. If you didn't hear about it yet, one of us blue. Actually just try to get like blue paint in time. If I end up losing. Because if you don't know, Lachlan and I got this little bet going. If the movie makes more than 140 million in the domestic opening, I have to paint myself blue. If it makes less than that, then Lachlan will do the same. So yeah, one of us will turn up blue for that review, which really not looking forward to. But we'll see. We'll see. Next week we will talk about the film that is the only really wide new release that week on December 16th. We are getting Avatar: The Way of Water. Also out by then is Steven Spielberg's new film, The Fablemans. It's getting a VOD release, and yeah, Lachlan, we are ready.
That's
I think we
us.
should both get the blue paint and end up being blue. No, or I just turn up the like color filter and just do that in a post effect. But no, that would be, you can't do that. You got to do the real thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
The
all the
real thing.
releases. Next week we'll also be talking about Avatar 2. That's what we'll be doing. But when it comes to films that you can watch in the meantime, something that pairs maybe nicely with Avatar, let's head on over to the picks of the week. So, Lachlan, what would you tell people to go see right now?
Well, obviously, I wanted to think of a film that was just as culturally insignificant, but tried to be something.
Uh-huh.
And
I like that idea.
I have two picks. Okay, I
Yeah.
have two picks. One that answers that, and then one that's a legitimate pick. So, if you want to watch a film that's culturally insignificant but tries so fucking hard to be culturally significant, go watch Ready Player One. It's a Steven Spielberg classic. However, if you actually want to watch a good film from 2009 that's way less successful but definitely more culturally significant, and in my opinion, I would say one of the best films that this director has ever made, Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino
Ooh.
came out in 2009.
Yeah.
That's the movie from 2009 you should go watch.
Well, I'm sticking with James Cameron on this one. Not my favorite of his filmography, but definitely up there as a film that I would say is also better than Avatar and is way more culturally significant, where it feels like no one on this planet has not seen it. And I'm talking about the film from 1997, the last film he made before Avatar, that being Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. And if you didn't see, Kate Winslet actually returns for the Avatar sequel, so she'll be in that one. Looking forward to see what she'll do, because I think she once stated that like it was hell. She like wanted to die on the set of Titanic because yeah, James Cameron apparently was kind of an asshole to work with overall. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the show. If you somehow haven't seen Titanic, go see that. Next week, like I said, we'll be talking about Avatar 2, The Way of Water. In the meantime, you can go follow all of our socials. Those are linked below for Quiet on Set. There's a link tree. Same goes for Lachlan and mine. Lachlan and my socials. Check out our TikTok. Check out our YouTube shorts. We're doing a bit more over there. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on the episode. Helps us grow the show. And to close out the show, Lachlan, I want to ask you, how long can you hold your breath?
Pretty well. I used to swim.
Yeah? For how long?
I could probably hold my breath underwater for, I reckon I could do 2 minutes.
Cool.
Are you going to get me to film myself holding my breath underwater for 2 minutes? I totally can. I'll go to the pool. It's too cold
Sure,
for you to do
prove
it.
it.
Actually, no, Ewan, you should also do it.
Well, it's snowing outside. I feel like it's a bit cold. It's
Exactly.
-degrees here.
Exactly.